one thing here on the class, and it had to do with there's good peer pressure and there's bad peer pressure. We talked about that, and we had some great examples of that. And one of the examples had to do with Queen Esther and how she. There was four main players there actually. We had Queen Esther and Mordecai and Haman that built the gallows to hang all the Jews, to get rid of them, and he convinced the king to do that. And so then we have Mordecai, the cousin of Queen Esther, to convince her to go into the king and have him reverse that mandate. And so Curtis brought up a really good point in my mind, and how it is that God has always taken care of his people. Now, we don't have the option here to read into and make up things in the Bible as we know. We read it as the way it is. But I'm looking at how it is with Queen Esther when Mordecai says, you need to go do this. And then she said, well, if I go in, if I die, I die. Because I have no idea what the king is going to be like today. And so, as we know, she went in and he was enamored with her. And said, come on in and I'll give you, what do you want? I'll give you anything you want. And so, Curtis was kind of putting out the idea that, there's a possibility that God had put it in the king's mind, because the king could have just said, when she came in, she said, haul her out of here. I don't want to see her. Go chop her head off or hang her out here or whatever you want to do. But that's not what it was. To where going back to, that's not what happened. And going back to the original conversation that Moses had with God, and how God said that he is going to harden Pharaoh's heart. And it's going to be a number of plagues that he's going to put there with in Egypt before Pharaoh is going to allow them to leave. But point being is, right there he says, I am going to harden Pharaoh's heart. And now we fast forward. I want to use that as an example. Fast forward over to Queen Esther, to where and I don't want to be making things up as we go along here, obviously, but is it possible that God softened the king's heart? So when Esther came in, what do you want? What can I give you? The kind of thing. And so, you can't hear anything? Where's Juan? Juan, I just got somebody said they can't hear anything. Now that may be a good thing.
Because of her beauty.
Say that again.
Because of her beauty.
Well, because of her beauty, but as Curtis was bringing up the point, and he had a really, in my mind, a good point. He says, go back and watch all the things that have gone on with the children of Israel, and how God cared for them, and how God made sure that we had this lineage leading to Christ, to where in just taking this one example with Esther, she could have gone in and see the king and goes, number one, I'm tired of looking at you, and get rid of her. And then what would have happened? That the action that he already mandated with Haman to kill all of the children of Israel would have taken place. But Curtis I was going to have Curtis do some explanation on some of the other things. But I hadn't thought of that, so I was just passing that on as something that I found interesting. I hope you do. Exactly. Right. Yeah, no, that was the point. good or bad, those are the things that needed to happen to get to where we are. And I always, looking out the window around here at all the corruption that goes on, and I always just kind of, naysay it a little bit, and I think of things and I say, who's in control? It isn't me, and we're glad of that. So anyway, one of the I just wanted to pass that. I hope you found some of that interesting. One of the things that we're doing, we're in this particular book, and it has to do with talking, teaching, training our children, our grandchildren, in an effort to prepare them for some of the corrupt things that go on in our culture and how they're going to need to be aware of those. And so we continue to grow the church instead of its a continuation of attrition, where people are leaving the churches, and it's by design through the different colleges and instructors that are taught to teach and train people away from Christianity, that kind of thing. This is a article that I found at a local paper this last week. Maybe some of you have seen it. I'm not going to waste a lot of time on that. It's the title of it is called "Steep Decline," and under that it said under 50% of Americans belong to a church. And so it said, I'll just read a little bit of it. It gives us an idea of what our challenges are in our culture, and what we need to do to press on, to do better what we're doing. It's for the first time in 80 years, fewer than 50% of Americans say they belong to a church or a synagogue, amid an ongoing steep decline in religious attendance, according to a recent Gallup poll. They began taking the poll in 1937 and goes on to how it is just on a continuous decline, and in the last 20 years, it's on a rapid decline, where we're losing close to 5% a year, not 5% a year, 5% every 10 years. And so with that, again, when I read things like that, I want to share them with you, because that's the whole idea, concept here behind what Dr. Harab is talking about and teaching about with our children. If you remember, he talks about in there about this is what I intend to teach my children about this subject, about peer pressure, about bad language, about whatever the subjects are, and so that kind of thing. So I just wanted to, keep everybody kind of focused on that as possible. One of the things that I brought up a couple of weeks ago in regards to an organization, a group that I belong to, and we have the 3 successes. We get together once a month, and we call it 3 successes and 2 challenges. And so one of the things that goes on in that, and I wanted to kind of share that idea and concept with you, because in our group of company owners and CEOs, why that idea, when we talk about 3, you come with 3 successes. That's why you're there, and you come with 2 challenges, so we can help each other. That's the idea, where we're open with that idea. And so I had a success here a couple of weeks ago, yesterday afternoon, with some of my kids around for the Easter egg hunt and such. Why I bring out this and talk about them with my grandkids, and we had a lot of great conversation. We'll get involved with that in a minute, including my daughter-in-law, who's a school teacher that's been home for a couple of months because of some unfortunate medical problems, and so we talked about the things in here about that, and I'm going to share that with you as a success. I'll get into a little bit more of it deeper, but with that, if some of us here have successes in talking to our grandchildren about different subjects and issues, why share that with us. And so because what I've noticed with our board of directors group, it kind of becomes, we feed on that, and we're excited to tell about some success we had, and success like I'm telling you about. I'm talking to my grandkids about these subjects and how to prepare themselves for future life. So feel free to raise your hand from time to time and say, hey, I had a great success and I want to share it with you, or like that. So let's keep that in our mind here. We're now on to turn your book, I think, to page 16, and we're looking at media. And all the things that go on with our media and such, and how it distracts us from possibly spending time in the Word of God. Is that possible? I've been criticized, as for example, Tim Brown has criticized me for for not having a cell phone. I have one now. I don't have it with me, and I don't have it on, and I don't know the phone number. But I have one, so I'm making progress. And I have it at home on my kitchen desk, kitchen table. And I turn it on once a week to see if anybody called me. Well, maybe somebody does. So anyway, with that, I want to get into that concept, just like I'm talking about. If we're doing other things with our time. In fact, I want to just maybe spend the rest of the day here talking about time. What are we doing with it? Let's look at the media section here. The second paragraph. Stop for a moment. Consider how much media you have ingested in this week. The diet would include, but not limited to, television, movies, video games, internet advertising, radio, smartphones, etc. Now consider two things. How has the media influenced you? It may have influenced. I don't think that there's anybody that hasn't influenced. So put that out of your mind. Say, oh, it hasn't influenced me. Well, yeah, it has. But how has it influenced? And was the media glorifying to God? This constant deluge of media in our lives has altered the attention spans of many. We have become a soundbite nation as media consumers surf from site to site, movie scenes changing quickly to hold the attention of young viewers. Simply put, media has become a dominating force in the lives of most. Media can, in itself, like we talked about last week with good sound influence or bad. It can be either way. Media in itself can either be good or bad. And many people rely on computers or news, daily basics. Many young people have become proficient in making homemade videos to share with their friends. But for many, media has become an addiction. Their lives literally revolve around checking emails, texting, playing video games, or watching television. Now, here's the part I want to spend some time on. This constant desire for media has infiltrated its way into the church. Many Bible classes are looking for ways to incorporate more media in the classrooms. Numerous faithful Christians have exchanged time that used to spend in the Word for media time. Few can say that media is not having an impact on the church or the Christian family. In many cases, the increased media devices outpace parents' consideration and rules for children. Turn over to the next thing here that I want to incorporate both of these this class into this here, and it's on page 25, and it's called Prioritizing Your Time. And with that, there has an explanation where he's interviewed a young mother, and she's explaining what is going on in her life. And I've seen some of this firsthand, where now we can use my wife as an example. When I had all 5 children at home, and up in the morning and making breakfast and hauling them to school, and then one has to go to a soccer game, and one has to go to a baseball game, and one has to go to a football game, and one has to go to the swimming, and one has to go play the violin, and so where does that leave us in Bible study? You know, are we looking at and prioritizing our time to the best use for what we're doing? Benjamin Franklin said, "Time is money." Now, I want to just break that down a little bit to where we're not just getting involved with dollars and cents necessarily, even that's always a consideration. As for his famous saying, it refers to the concept of opportunity cost. Are we looking at every opportunity we have, and are we prepared in a godly lifestyle to take advantage of those opportunities? You know, in my business, we have time and motion. How long does it take to get in the manufacturing process product from point A to point B? How do we do it more efficiently, more effectively, and in a better way? You know, so we're constantly. My youngest son is constantly wandering around the factory with a stopwatch. You know, seeing, you know, how do we do this better? And so, you know, opportunity cost, you know, because there's a cost connected with, you know, whether it's just time. You know, when we're going to be out of time here in a few minutes, you know, did I accomplish anything? And we know, you know, like we just learned that our time is limited. Our friend Horace is now gone, and so with that, and I forget what it was that Tom talked about. The time is brief. What is it? Brief, brittle, and uncertain. So, and we see that, you know, on a daily basis. So, what is the best way that we're using our time? I went online looking to see if there was very much information in regards to biblical time management, we'll call it, and guess what? Voila! 8 biblical management time tips plus a planner. Planner? What's that about? Oh, you mean we need a plan? Have you ever thought of that? I was studying this yesterday afternoon before the Easter egg hunt started, and I was telling my daughter that works for me as our CFO, I go, I just found this, and I'm really excited about this planning concept, you know, in the church and for our personal lives. And so she goes, well, which I know she does this, when she gets to work every morning, she has a yellow pad, and she writes down all the things she's going to do today. I'm going to do this, you know, and then she checks. I watch her do that. And I walk past her desk once in a while, and I see she's got stuff checked off. And she goes, if I don't do that, absolutely nothing gets done. Nothing gets done. The phone rings, somebody walks in the door, where's this, what's that, how do I do this? And she goes, for whatever reason, if I don't plan, why, it just absolutely is a complete washout. So my question is everybody, including me, planning for our, you know, continual spiritual growth, planning to talk to our children, planning to talk to our grandchildren, setting aside the time to do that? And it was difficult for me yesterday afternoon, I'm going to admit that everybody's running around, all these grandkids from 13 to 3 running around, having a lot of fun and Easter egg hunting, for me to bring this out and go, hey, we need to stop now, and we're going to talk about planning, and so I was actually able to do that, and so to some extent, and got good feedback with that. I'm going to read some of what is in this planner, and it's all connected with biblical verses. So we're not dealing with personal opinion about how you should do this or that or whatever. We're going to go right to the Bible and look at some verses and see how that applies to all of us. Any questions about what we're talking about? Are we all? Who does planning? Does everybody do planning of some sort? With their daily lives, or what are they doing, and how do you set aside time? Go ahead.
I do planning. In the morning, I'll write what I would like to accomplish that day. And most of the time, I'll get to it and I'll do it and I finished it. And then I look at it and it's like noon time. I go, what am I doing the rest of the day? And so either I have to make those things longer or add more to it. But generally, I try to put things on that I know I'm accomplishing. So that I don't fail at it. So I know, things like that. And another thing, when you're talking about prioritizing your time, it's almost in the same sense as your finances. You make a certain amount of money every month, or you bring home, and you have all the bills to pay, and people wonder, where did their money go? Well, you start to think, each time you spend something, 30 cents here, or maybe $1 something here, or whatever, when you write that down, you can see, so prioritizing your time and doing things, they are pretty much like the same, because things will get away from you, and you don't get a chance to do a lot of things.
Yeah, I have a desk calendar, and I write on there some things that I know I need to do, appointments that I have, because if I don't, it can slip away. If I put something on top of it and I don't see it, well then
No.
it's bad news.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's we can go on. I printed out, which I'm not going to read many of those about time. What do you do? Well, I'm just killing a little time. Well, that's now the clock is ticking, and what you're talking about, is that's real life. And if you don't do those things, from my standpoint, what we do, we have back to our group of board of directors that I'm involved in. In December, we write out our plan for what we're doing for the rest of the coming year. And now we don't, let's see, let me write that out, and I'll just put that down here, and I'll look at it next December. Oh no, because we have we call it one-on-one. So tell me about your plan for 2021. Well, it's this, and it's increasing this productivity, it is putting a robot system in here and that. And so they go, oh, that's nice. When are you going to have that done? Well, I didn't put down when I'm going to have it done. I just wrote it down. You mean I have to say when I'm going to have it done? Yeah, you do. Because if you don't put that down, why, then it's going to be December all over again. And you go, oh, how did all that time go by? How did I miss that? Well, that just happens. It's so easy. And so then we get down to you write it down, because you're doing it on a real good daily basis. So it won't get away from you. That sometimes it's if we write it down and we're going to have this done this year, then we need to monitor that. And then how did I get? I'm going to change my habits from looking at video games to Bible study, which brings up a point that I was, and this is a reality. Let's presume that when I go home today, I'm going to play a video game. Now, fortunately, I don't even have a video game to play, or do I know how to play it if I had one? But if I had one and I knew how to play it, and I don't know how long video games take to play, let's say they take an hour, I don't know. Use that as an example. So if I play a video game for an hour, what was I doing with that other hour anyway? Was I studying for a class? Was I doing Bible study? Was I driving out to talk to my grandchildren? You know, if I go, well, let's watch a movie and do this and that and the other thing, what is that time? Where's the time trade-off? I don't know if anybody knows people that had substance abuse and were cured of that. Why there's especially people that were kind of like party animals, and they left that lifestyle. There's a void in there. There's a vacuum. What fills that? Does everybody understand that concept? There's a vacuum. What are you doing with that time? So, and I've seen people do that, even close family members, and they go off and they develop other things that they're doing instead of being a party animal and a lot of alcohol. Maybe they go off and do things with hunting and fishing. But there's that time. You say, well, I'm not going to be boozing it up anymore and partying. Well, that's good to know. So what are you going to do? And I want to use that I want us to think about that, in this same content here of if I'm up here with where he talks about in the media, where we have television, movies, video games, internet, advertising, radio, smartphones. If I'm not doing that, what am I doing? Or if I am doing that, what is that taking away from my spiritual life? Have you thought of that? Something where we need to focus on, if I do this, then I'm not doing that. A kind of a concept. Anybody have any comment on that and what they do and use to stay away from that lifestyle?
The one thing I used to do was watch football or sports. But then I find myself just sitting there. These guys are making millions of dollars doing what they do. I'm not getting nothing out of this. Turn it off and go do something that's going to help me. So.
Right. Yeah, help you. You help your grandchildren. Yeah. And that kind of thing. But it's the time. When I'm reading this here, and he gets down to the time spent, and then over with the woman with the children, and how she, running herself ragged with all of the events that go on that you get caught up with in the culture kind of thing. I'll read a little bit of what this woman wrote here on her Bible planner. Are you a fly by the seat of your pants kind of a woman, or do you make a plan and stick to it no matter what? Do you know about the biblical time management, or are you in desperate need of a Christian planner? And then she shows how to, which I could have printed that out, how to go find that. Me, I'm a natural-born planner, a list maker. I use both a paper planner, electronic calendar on my phone, and of course, sticky notes. Got to have sticky notes. Every year I go on a hunt for a new planner, and every year I can't find exactly what I like, so every year I make do with what is close. I think I have tried every brand known to man. And then she goes on and talks about planning. That's just a huge part of her Christian lifestyle. Or better yet, let's go get some tips from God. The Bible has quite a bit to say about planning and time management. And in this day and age, when those who get the most done are celebrated, well, it would be good to know exactly what God thinks about it. Does anybody agree with that? No matter what stage of life you find yourself in right now, I think you will find these biblical time management tips useful and, more importantly, beneficial. And if you for 1 second are thinking that your current stage of life does not need dreams, goals, or planning, just remember this. Having a God-sized dream isn't about living big. It's about God living big in me. So that's the mental concept. Where's our thought process? Then she goes right into 8 biblical time management tips, and I'm going to go over a few of these before we run out of time. Clearly defined priorities. Are our priorities clearly defined? And when we say, are they mentally defined, or do we have them clearly defined in writing, like Tim and Deborah do? Colossians 3:1 and 2. If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things that are above and not things on the earth. Things on the earth would be what? The television, the video game, taking away the time. Huh? We must first schedule what matters most. Things that are above, or what will happen, it'll get pushed out of every little distraction. We know all about that. Why I get questions from time to time on my job. Why didn't you get that done? Because I got distracted. Go ahead, Warren.
Funny you were talking about this because last night I got home pretty late, so I figured I'll go to bed early, and I was getting ready to charge my phone. I was like, let me check this video out real quick, right? So it's only 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes long. That's fine. I scroll through that, and then something else comes up that catches my attention. That's only 3 minutes. And so I'm going through these videos, and then next thing I know, it's like 10:30. So I just lost 30 minutes where I went to bed early because I wanted to go to sleep early, and without even knowing or paying attention, I got distracted. So even though I try to plan something, there's always distractions, especially like media and your phone.
Absolutely.
And all that. So it's easy to get caught in that, but we have to be aware and vigilant, right?
You have to be stick to the plan, and that's easy to say.
Right.
Why can't you stick with the plan? Well, I got distracted. There was this dancing girl, and it was only 2 minutes long, so I thought I would just look at that real quick.
Yeah.
No, I just made that up. I wasn't accusing you of that. But that's easy. That's so easy to do. But we're talking about number one, being disciplined. You go say, well, I can get disciplined. Well, can you, or can I, or can't I? Number two, looking over at 2 Peter chapter 1, starting in verse 3, we've been given all things pertaining to life and godliness, and then Peter gives us a list of what we need to do to develop that. We add to patience self-control, and that's another huge obstacle in our culture of how do we control ourselves with all of the media that goes on and the distractions that are just there, and you can't say, well, I'm oblivious to those things. No, I'm not. Yeah, no, that's just not the way it is. And so how do we do that? How do we develop that? Yeah, first we must schedule what matters most. And maybe the way to do that is we write down a list of those things when we make our planner. Yeah, we plan, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and with that, then, that's what I'm going to stay away from. You know, where, I can't remember the verse in the Bible is, God will not put something before your eyes that will separate you from God. So, but with that, you know, that's another easy thing to say, but if I ever learn how to turn my phone on, maybe I'll find something there that I shouldn't be looking at. I don't know. Could happen. Proverbs 21:5, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty only comes to poverty. The plans of the diligent. So we're going to be diligent. How do we do that? How do we become more diligent? Help me out. Constant study. Constant priority. What's our priorities? It's easy to, go off in those worldly directions. It just is, and again, we're talking about that here with, and I don't want to use this term inappropriate, with old people. but now we get down to my grandkids. That's a whole new issue with how do we prioritize that? How do we develop self-control with them? How do they, when they're looking at these things, you shouldn't be looking at that, and you shouldn't be spending time in that area. You need to be spending time in these other areas that are going to be beneficial to you on the long term, instead of on a short-term issue. Proverbs 14:8. The wisdom of the prudent is to discern his ways, but the folly of fools is deceiving. The folly of fools is deceiving. And again, we're talking about the wisdom, and where does wisdom come from? Comes from God. It doesn't come from me. Don't look at me for wisdom. You'll be in trouble. Number 3, plan carefully, taking into the account the Lord's will. Does God have lay out an idea that how we should live? The answer is absolutely. Do we know what that is when we're doing our daily planner? Here's our daily planner, weekly planner. I'm going to have this done for the month of April. I'm going to have this done. I'm going to talk to these people. I'm going to talk to my grandchildren. I'm going to teach them, train them. We're going to talk about these subjects. We're going to talk about how to disassociate yourself with video games and other social media and Facebook and Snapchat and Pornhub, and we're going to get away from all of that, and we're going to spend time on this as a challenge to everybody for the month of April. Let's figure out how we can, collaborate together to make that happen. Does that make sense? I think that'll be fun to do. We'll see when we stand in here in May, what we think we've accomplished for the month. So with that, we're running out of time, and so this is a good stopping point here. Does anybody have any comments about what we're talking about here and such? Go ahead, Tim.
As a challenge, you said that we need to do a challenge through the month of April, or what we can do. Everybody watch and participate in Wednesday night Bible class on Zoom.
Okay. Did everybody hear that? Tim Brown says, and I've been a victim of not doing that. We could just do some excuses, like I've been actually working on this class, but it's only for 45 minutes, and so there's no reason why I can't take 45 minutes out and do that. So So that's going to be a challenge that we're going to have for everybody for the month of April. We'll report to that in the first Sunday in May of how we were able to get that done, as well as other things that to share with talking to our children, our grandchildren, our neighbors, and that kind of thing about these subjects. How are you managing your time, and what are you doing with it? So with that being, there's no other comments. Let's close with a short prayer. Our Father in heaven, it's such a privilege to study a portion of your word that we can be better equipped at using and managing our time to serve you, to study your word, to teach each other, to teach and train, instruct our grandchildren, our children, the ways to bring them up correctly, Father, and so they will not depart from your word as they get old. Help us in that effort. Help us not to waver our lives, Father, off into the culture of the worldly things, to stay on track with how you want us to be. Help us with that effort, Father. We're weak and we know we need that help. It's in your Son, Jesus' name we ask these things. Amen.